Hello and welcome, Exiles, to my test for Shockwave Totem as a Leaguestart. And this skill, not very well known, is essentially a skill that casts a physical damage Nova on a totem. It's a specific totem skill. It's not like I'm attaching spell totem support to it. No, it's called Shockwave Totem, and it's just a physical Nova that comes out of these things. It is, in my opinion, one of the strongest totem builds in the game currently. You might not believe me that, but if you go up and you look up videos on people who've made min-maxed builds for this, it gets pretty crazy. Considering basically it's a physical-based spell, it doesn't have the downside of needing to be supported by spell totem support, and on top of that you can go into hatred scaling and then put on a heatshiver and stuff where you're just multiplying the damage up quite high, and on the high end it can reach, I'm pretty sure, close to 500 million DPS, if not more, on the really high end of this build. It does get some pretty crazy scaling, but the question is, how good is it on a Leaguestart? Now for me, all the way through the campaign, I basically did Magma Orb up until midway through Act 5, and that's when I made the swap. I could have made the swap earlier, but for whatever reason, I wanted to go full fire conversion, and I wanted to have Ancestral Bond before I swapped, so it took a little bit more levels. Honestly, in hindsight, I think just going pure Fizz to start off with would probably have been the play. And quite frankly, when this build is min-maxed, you should be going into Hatred cold conversion scaling. The reason I didn't do that is because if you're doing an SSF start, you don't really have access to a lot of that extra aura effect scaling you get with Trade League. And right out the gate, fire is pretty strong because of this node right here. 100% damage you get right from here. And on top of that, the fire conversion is pretty easy to get early on as well without any gearing, right? For cold conversion, you need Fizz to cold converting gloves, stuff like that, to help you get the rest of your conversion. So it made some sense to me. Ultimately, I'm not convinced this is better than just starting out with pure Fizz on a Leaguestart, but this is what I went with. As for how well did the build do, we did Eater and Exarch in about 8 hours and 45 minutes. I've had some AFK time since then, but that's how long it took. And of course, we dropped an Avatar of the Slaughter, a very good Forbidden Flame Jewel. So that way, on actual Leaguestart and during the entire course of the league, I will not drop a valuable jewel because I dropped it right here. That was my one valuable jewel for the league, I guess. Unfortunate, unlucky. That's how it goes sometimes. And as for how many times it died, well, I'm a little bit embarrassed because I died 40. Yeah, I died 40 times. Needless to say, this character didn't have as good a defense as some of the other characters. Although it has the quality of life where I can put down totems and then run around on a boss fight, most of the times I died was because I'd shield charge into a pack, then go to put down my totem, and enemies would already be firing, and if they pre-fired something like Spark, the totems would die before they cast their skill. Now, granted, I went for some of the extra life stuff on the totems. Eventually, you know, on a trade league scenario, you probably want to anoint something like Ironwood would have made these much more tanky, but I didn't get the oils in my run to do this. I came close. I think I have everything but the orange oil. Like, if I go and I check right now, I almost did it. Yeah, I didn't get the orange oil. Now that I think of it, I could have maybe upgraded, but then I wouldn't have the brown oil, right? No, I could have? Oh, that's so... Don't make fun of me. Don't make fun of me. Okay, it's... Okay, well, anyways, Ironwood gives basically armor to me, it gives life to the totems, and it helps cap their res, and that would have probably saved me a lot of deaths. Now, in my defense, I didn't get that teal oil until, like, a tier 14 map, so it wouldn't have really, like, I probably maybe would have died 35 times instead of 40 or something. I don't know. It didn't make that much of a difference, okay? I didn't think I had the oils for it, but I guess I do. Anyways, besides the point, overall, the character's defenses, they aren't stunning, and this is definitely a character I died more than any other build I tested, except for maybe, I did an Armageddon brand test, but I didn't even post that because, it didn't go great. It went okay. I mean, the Armageddon brand one, I did it in 9 hours and 28 minutes, so it was still a little bit slower. I honestly probably died less of this character, so maybe I should have posted it. But anyway, Shockwave Totem, it did pretty good, but ultimately, on a Leaguestart, I'm not a big fan of totems, so I didn't like it a ton. I think if you're a totem guy, I think it's a really solid option. But for me, as not a totem guy, I mean, it was solid enough, but I didn't enjoy it per se. Now let's go ahead and get in a showcase of a T15 map I have sitting around to give you guys a look at what this build looks like in tier 15 level content, just to give you an idea of what to expect on a 4-link. Now we have Black Cane here. This is a good starter item. This is not a good late game item, in my opinion. You have to summon Phantasms to get basically a bunch of flat fizz. That's why I have Ball Lightning and Summon Phantasm and Unleash support. Essentially, when I run into a rare or a unique enemy, I cast my Ball Lightning to summon some Phantasms. This gives flat damage based on that. I bought this Summon Phantasm late, so it's under-leveled, so it's not giving as much flat fizz as it should, but it's just better damage than the other weapon I had, and on a League start, it's pretty solid. Eventually, it's something you want to swap out of, though. Anyways, as I was saying, okay, 4-link, multi-totem, Shockwave Totem, base level 19. Overall, this run went, I want to say it went okay-ish, but as you can see, one of the weaknesses of this skill specifically is its range. Something that is solved with Astral Projector, similar to how Pyroclast, you have to throw it right underneath an enemy. At least Pyroclast has extra projectiles where they kind of target farther away enemies. The way Shockwave Totem works is if the enemy isn't in range, it's just never getting hit. It has a knockback, so it knocks enemies out of range. So a lot of times there'd be some random archer-style monster that was on the outskirts of a pack that I didn't actually kill because of the range of these things in terms of like what they can actually hit and whatnot. Like if an enemy was like that Rogue Exile there, where you just kept running out of the range, it kind of is unfortunate. And that's where something like Astral Projector really helps these totems a lot, is because it gives them the ability to cast their Nova spell directly on the enemy. So even if you don't perfectly place the totems, you're still getting the advantage of the totems as if they were right next to the enemy, because they're going to target on top of them. And the knockback downside that these things come back the knockback downside that these totems come with, why am I saying, I don't know, I can't talk right now. The downside that they come with isn't really a big deal when you're able to, that's a tanky Rogue Exile. After they buff Rogue Exiles became much, much more of a threat than they used to be. I don't know if you guys remember previously, Rogue Exiles were just like, you just completely raffle stomped them, and then they gave him a pretty sizable buff. I'm not sure which league exactly, but it definitely made an impact on how tanky Rogue Exiles can be. But it's basically just that you place totems and you run through. I don't think this character currently has enough damage scaling to really be the feels good. Doesn't have the Astral Projector, doesn't have the higher damage scaling. Eventually this build becomes extremely feels good because you start to just one-tap things and you can just put totems down and run. Right now, obviously, you know, we're on the lower DPS end, we're super low on gearing, but it's doing, you know, the high tier content well enough, so to speak. So and this is what bossing looks like. You pretty much just put your totems down, build back a boss into like a corner, and it's pretty chill, I guess. It's not super involved, but it's also like, this is clearly much less damage than I was dealing with the Pyroclast, obviously, right? So, all in all, the build does fine. This map had no tank mods except for, I guess, endurance charge steal, but I'd have to generate charges for them to steal, and I don't think they can steal minimum charges. But maybe they can. I don't know, 100% to be honest. But yeah, that is Shockwave Totem. I think it's a solid B tier for a Leaguestarter. I'm not particularly a big totem guy, so I don't like it a ton, but there are a lot of like early power gain that you would get on a Leaguestar. Like, you'd at least have a 5-link by now, which would be another 50% more damage almost if I was able to add on like crit damage support. It'd be a pretty big damage upgrade, just getting a 5-link for a couple C on Leaguestar. Totally doable. There's obviously limitations of me testing this in an SSF environment. I'm gonna low roll, and I'm gonna be playing with a 4-link. Stuff like that matters a lot, right? Anyways, we still somehow randomly dropped a Black King, which was a godsend to help our damage early on. But all in all, I think it's a solid B+ tier more like a B starter in my mind, and then it envelops into a really Giga Chad build with that later game scaling. It has some of the higher scaling, like some builds. Like Righteous Fire, for example, it hits a ceiling really fast, or it starts to get real expensive real fast for power, whereas this has a lot like lower cost for power. Like me just getting a heatshiver, that's not a particularly rare item, and it has a lot of damage power for a build like this. Me starting to get hatred scaling in my build, getting hatred scaling on my like chest piece with aura effect and hatred effect, getting hatred effect on like a one-hand weapon, stuff like that starts to ramp this build's damage a ton. Going for that physical conversion, a lot of that stuff makes a big difference. But early league, you just don't really have those options, especially in SSF start. So anyways, that's Shockwave Totem. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video of what it looks like if you were to League start fresh SSF on Shockwave Totem. Definitely viable all the way through T16s, and you'll progress it and whatnot. But for me personally, it's a B. I'm not a big Totem guy. Anyways, that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. As always, thanks for watching. Take care, Exiles, and peace out.